Most Christians can list the fruit of the Spirit from memory. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. They learned it in Sunday school. They put it on a poster. They memorized it for a quiz. But most of them cannot tell you whether those things are actually growing in their own life, or whether what they have is the counterfeit version that looks right on the outside but has no root underneath it. Because here is what most people miss about the fruit of the Spirit. It is not a checklist. It is not a behavior modification program. It is not something you manufacture by trying harder to be patient or forcing yourself to be kind when you do not feel like it. Fruit is not manufactured. Fruit is grown. And fruit only grows when the branch is connected to the vine. Open your Bible to John chapter 15 verses 4 and 5. Jesus is speaking. And he says this, "Abide in me, and I in you. As the branch cannot bear fruit by itself unless it abides in the vine, neither can you unless you abide in me. I am the vine. You are the branches. Whoever abides in me, and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing." Stop there. Jesus does not say try harder to produce fruit. He does not say study the list and practice each one until you get it right. He says abide. Stay connected. Remain in me, and the fruit will come. Because fruit is the natural result of connection, not effort. A branch does not strain to produce an apple. It does not grit its teeth and force a grape into existence. It stays connected to the vine, and the vine does the work through the branch. The branch just has to stay attached. That is how the fruit of the Spirit works. Love is not something you generate on your own. Joy is not something you manufacture when life is hard. Peace is not something you force yourself to feel when everything is falling apart. Those things flow from a life that is connected to Jesus. And when the connection is real, the fruit is real. But when the connection is not there, the fruit is not there either. And no amount of religious performance can fake what only the Spirit produces. Now go to Galatians chapter 5 verses 22 and 23. Paul writes the list. The fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there is no law. Notice something. Paul does not say the fruits of the Spirit, plural. He says the fruit, singular. It is one fruit with 9 expressions. You do not get to pick 3 and ignore the rest. You do not get to say, I have love and joy, but patience is not really my thing. The fruit is a package. And if some of it is growing, but other parts are completely absent, that tells you something about the depth of the connection. Also notice what comes right before this list. Verses 19 through 21. The works of the flesh. Sexual immorality, impurity, sensuality, idolatry, sorcery, enmity, strife, jealousy, fits of anger, rivalries, dissensions, divisions, envy, drunkenness, orgies, and things like these. Paul puts them side by side on purpose. The works of the flesh and the fruit of the Spirit. One is produced by the flesh. The other is produced by the Spirit. And they are mutually exclusive. You cannot be walking in the Spirit and producing the works of the flesh at the same time. The fruit tells you which one is running your life. Now go to Matthew chapter 7 verses 16 through 20. Jesus says this, "You will recognize them by their fruits. Are grapes gathered from thorn bushes or figs from thistles? So every healthy tree bears good fruit, but the diseased tree bears bad fruit. A healthy tree cannot bear bad fruit, and a diseased tree cannot bear good fruit. Every tree that does not bear good fruit is cut down and thrown into the fire. Thus you will recognize them by their fruits." Jesus is not talking about behavior here. He is talking about identity. You will know what kind of tree it is by looking at what it produces, not by looking at the leaves, not by looking at the bark, by looking at the fruit. Comment below. If someone looked at the fruit of your life right now and had to determine what kind of tree you are, what would they see? Drop it below. So how do you recognize real fruit versus the counterfeit? Because there is a counterfeit, and it looks close enough to fool most people, including the person producing it. Here is the difference. The counterfeit version of the fruit is behavior-driven. It comes from discipline and willpower and social pressure. The real version is spirit-driven. It comes from connection to Jesus, and it shows up even when nobody is watching. Counterfeit patience is biting your tongue in public and exploding at home. Real patience endures because the Spirit is producing endurance from the inside out. Counterfeit kindness is being nice to the people who can benefit you and cold to the ones who cannot. Real kindness flows to everyone because it is not strategic. It is supernatural. Counterfeit joy is a smile on Sunday morning. Real joy persists in suffering because it is anchored to something deeper than circumstances. The counterfeit always breaks under pressure. The real fruit holds. Because the real fruit is not coming from you. It is coming through you from the vine you are connected to. Now look at Luke chapter 6 verses 43 through 45. Jesus says no good tree bears bad fruit, nor again does a bad tree bear good fruit. For each tree is known by its own fruit. For figs are not gathered from thorn bushes, nor are grapes picked from a bramble bush. The good person out of the good treasure of his heart produces good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure produces evil. For out of the abundance of the heart the mouth speaks. Out of the abundance of the heart. That is where fruit comes from. Not from the effort of the hands. From the overflow of the heart. Whatever is filling your heart is what is going to come out. And if the heart is full of the Spirit, then the Spirit's fruit is what shows up. But if the heart is full of self and flesh and the world, then that is what comes out no matter how hard you try to dress it up. That is why you cannot fake real fruit long term. You can perform patience for a season. You can act kind when it costs you nothing. But eventually the pressure comes, and whatever is actually in the heart spills out. And in that moment you find out whether the fruit was real or rehearsed. Now go back to John chapter 15 verse 8. Jesus says, "By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit, and so prove to be my disciples." Prove. The fruit is the proof. Not your attendance record. Not your Bible knowledge. Not your theological vocabulary. The fruit. That is what proves you are a disciple. That is what glorifies the Father. Not the performance of religion, but the evidence of transformation. And verse 6. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers. And the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire and burned. Jesus is direct about what happens to the branch that is not connected. It does not just stop producing fruit. It withers. It dries up. It gets thrown away. The connection is not optional. It is the difference between life and death. So here is the hard truth that ties all of this together. The fruit of the Spirit is not a personality trait you develop. It is not a skill you practice. It is the evidence of a life connected to Jesus Christ. And if the evidence is not there, then the most important question you can ask yourself is not how do I try harder? It is, am I actually connected? Because the branch that is connected does not have to try to produce fruit. It just does. The sap flows. The nutrients transfer. The growth happens naturally. Not because the branch is impressive. Because the vine is alive. And the branch that is not connected can tape fruit to its limbs and fool everyone in the orchard. But the first storm that comes will knock every piece of fake fruit to the ground, and everyone will see what was actually there. Do not tape fruit to your life. Get connected to the vine. Abide in Him. Let the Spirit do the work. And the fruit will come. Not because you performed it. Because He produced it. If this landed, share it. Someone in your life needs this today. Subscribe on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook for the next one.